Can I get a big hi? Listen, I prepared my introduction. It has been there, but I'll begin with this. On 3rd July, I was asked to come and share about my work at NID to the MDes student, and Mahendra Patel was on my slide. And that slide was, Tarun told me that you have to tell the students a little bit of some toolkit on design study. How can they make the best use of their design study? You can explain it to them. And I put Mahendra Patel on my slide because he is the man who actually rekindled the joy of learning in me. So everything that I'm explaining to you today and everything that I have done by using my design study is dedicated to the man who was actually speaking before me. Okay, so the last decade or so has seen a buildup of the menstrual movement in India. And menstruation is, like, sometimes we think that what is this big deal? So I'm going to go ahead with my personal story. I was 12 when I got my first periods. And at this time, I was told to keep it a secret from others. I was not allowed to discuss it with my father or brother, and so that they don't know what menstruation is. So the general knowledge about menstruation is that why menstruation happens, what is the use of periods in our life. Nobody seemed to know about it, but somehow everybody around me knew that we don't have to talk about it. So this is how I grew up. I grew up looking at myself and my body as something dirty, impure, taboo, not to talk about it. I had to, during my periods, I was considered impure, so I was not allowed to sit on the sofa, some other family member's bed. I had to wash my bedsheet after every period, even if it was not stained. I was supposed to be pure only after the 7th day of my periods when I washed my hair. And this is not just my story. This would be the story of millions of girls out there in India and across the world, actually. What I have done in my life and where I'm today or what I'll do in future has to do everything with how much my parents cared about my health, my education, and all the sacrifices that they made. But when it came to periods, I did not have access to sanitary napkin. So every time I would get my periods, we would use rags. We would wash them and then reuse it again. And like all the other women in my family. Now, usage of cloth is not a problem. The problem was that a cloth which is soaked in a menstrual fluid is considered to be very pure, very impure, So we had to always hide it and then dry it in the sun, or sometimes we would not dry it also. Then to store it, we would keep it in a dark, damp place so that nobody knows that we are menstruating. So this is, and the problem wasn't that my parents couldn't afford sanitary napkin, but it was like, who would go buy sanitary napkin? So I grew up in this very small town called Garhwa in Jharkhand. So the 3 decades back, there weren't malls and sanitary napkins were still available only in the medical stores. And if it is a small town, so like everybody knew everyone, and the shopkeeper would always be a male person. Like I said, where I grew up, it was a very small place. My school was very small. We were just 6 students in our class, 4 girls and 2 boys. And our biology teacher, it was more like a tuition class only. So our biology teacher was very close to us. He would make our lessons seem easy and fun. A lot about why I'm so interested in science and I pursued my engineering after my schooling has to do with how he used to teach us science. But when this chapter came in our textbook, I got my periods in class 7. The chapter which taught about periods came in class 9. He skipped the chapter, asking us to go through it on our own. There was no question that came from that chapter in the exam also. So at home, periods were already treated as something not to be taught about. Our favorite teacher did not teach this particular topic, and he skipped it, making it very clear in our young minds that this is something that we must not talk about. Good girls and good boys don't talk about periods. Even today, what has happened is that, right now what has happened is that the age of menarche, which is the first occurrence of periods for girls, the age of that has reduced. Now the girls have started getting their periods when they are 8 or 9 years old. Around this time, the girls are in class 5 or 6. But the chapter which comes in class 8, 9, and 10. And in most of the cases, the teacher skips the subject. But the numbers are really staggering, you know. Every year in India, 1.2 crore girls reach puberty. And because there is always, in the last decade, things have changed for good. But if you look at the numbers, at least 88% of the girls are at the risk of following one or more discriminatory practices because they are on their periods. When period starts, and one among every 4 girls would start to miss out on school. And for many girls, having their periods means it is the end of their schooling. Why? Because they would not know how to manage their periods while they are away from home, or there is not enough of access to sanitation facilities like toilets in the school. Now, on the face of it, it might look like that, oh, it's a period, it's mostly like a girl's problem. It is not going to touch me, only to those houses where girls are, or if you are a woman, it is going to affect you. But what happens when girls start to drop out from school? When the girls start to drop out from school, or let's say that if the girls have stopped studying, they are married early. And because they are not studying, they are not financially independent. If they are married early, they have kids early. And when they have kids early and they have not studied to secure a good job for themselves, they are financially dependent on some other family member. And in most of the cases, a male person. And a girl who is discriminated against periods, or let's say who has dropped out of school because she has started getting her periods, because periods are also an indication of sexual maturity in girls. So then she is prone to the systematic gender-based discrimination and gender-based violence throughout her life. So it does not remain like just a girl problem. It becomes a human right problem. My perception about menstruation changed for the first time when I spoke about it openly to a male person. And this male person was my batchmate, Tuhin Paul, and also my co-founder and my husband. This is in 2006, 2007, when I was studying at NID. So Tuhin and I used to do a lot of projects together, and that is how we fell in love with each other. And so I was comfortable to share things with him. And Tuhin is a very, very caring and very supportive partner. He used to be an amazing boyfriend too. So so on my periods, I get menstrual cramps. So I used to be not as chirpy as I used to be in other days of my month. So he was curious, why am I behaving as such? So for the first time, I'm explaining this to him. So he is a very curious guy. He has to know things. He has to figure out things for himself. So he would go on the internet and look for information and then share all those information with me. So while our discussion, we figured out that Tuhin is just 2 brothers. So his mother never felt the need to explain to him that what menstruation is, or she is going through this every month and there is some kind of discomfort she is facing and all. His teacher taught him about periods, but he thought that it is just one-time phenomena. He thought ek baar periods aake khatam ho jata hai. He did not know that every month girls get their period. And I remember that day, he was literally baffled. He was like, what, you're saying that you bleed so much and it is normal, and then you have all these myths that you have been following. During our discussion, it just came out that if we, being so well educated, were so ill-informed about menstruation, there would be millions of girls out there who would be ill-informed too. Because we both came from engineering backgrounds and we both could have access to a lot of information. and in our free time, because we were staying in hostel, but we did not. So that there was this sense of shame. This was something that was bothering us. Also, if you look at the process of menstruation, it's really a simple process. Every month, a girl who is 9 or 10 years old, her body prepares for, having a baby. So every month, we have 2 ovaries. So every month, one of the ovary releases an egg. While the egg is traveling through the fallopian tube, the uterus gets a signal that you have to prepare yourself. If there is a fertilization that takes place, you have to prepare yourself to incubate the baby. In most of the cases, the fertilization does not take place only. If you look at yourself, we are 2 brothers or 1 child or maximum 3 brothers. So our mothers would not produce more than 3 babies. So fertilizations would not take only more than 3 times. Most of the time, the egg is released. And the uterine lining is not required. And then it comes out of the body, and then it prepares the body for another cycle. Such a simple biological process, not being taught to us, not being spoken about. So we saw it more like a communication design problem. And we were studying communication design. We were new media design students. So we said, okay, this is our problem, so we are going to scratch our own itch. We are going to find, while we are here at NID, we are going to find a solution for something that has been bothering us. And so our work on Menstrupedia started.